Game Forum. I'm Lindsay. This week I'm going to be doing a review on Gundam Battle Operation 2 for the PlayStation 4. I've always been a big fan of the Gundam franchise. They typically refer to mechs as mobile suits. This game in particular exclusively uses mechs from the Universal Century timeline. This kind of limits what is actually in the game. You're not going to be seeing too many Gundams from the Wing timeline or the Seed timeline or any of the other ones, but it also helps add a bit of realism. The Universal Century timeline has always been rooted in what it would be like if there was a real war between two future factions, and treats the mobile suits more like actual weapons of war. Like, what would a real tank be like? What would an actual mobile suit be like? And how would it feel to pilot? Which is interesting. The combat is pretty interesting too. It has a variety of roles, and you can have anyone from a sniper long distance style class to an up close melee fighter. You have a lot of different variety in weapon types too, whether it be bazookas, laser cannons, machine guns, and many other sub-weapons for each unit as well. One thing that takes a little bit of getting used to in the combat system is there's no lock-on. Makes it a lot more interesting because now you have to actually hit the person. There is no auto-aim. This is great if you're using something like a machine gun where you can spray and pray and keep that target on them. Makes it a lot more difficult when using more sniper classes or like one-shot heavy damage attacks like bazookas. One thing I did not like as much about the combat system is the stagger system. If you get hit with a large weighty attack, it ends up knocking you off balance. If it's hard enough, you can even fall over. This wastes a lot of time and leaves you wide open for a lot of damage, especially when dealing with multiple opponents. One thing I do really like is the ground combat system. It feels great. For the first time in a Gundam game, you really feel the weight behind some of these mobile suits. You're not going to be flying and zipping around like in a lot of the other games. It's not going to feel like a first person with a mech skin over it. You're really going to feel the weight of these mobile suits. However, it does slow down the gameplay just a little. Another thing slowing down the game is the reload times. The reload times can be unbearably slow sometimes, really making you grit your teeth as that counter ticks down for your next shot. In contrast to the ground mode is the space mode. Continuing with the weighty feel, you still feel really weighty and heavy, which doesn't feel right in the space mode. Since there is no gravity in space, you still feel slow and sluggish. It feels like you're trying to go through molasses. It should have been a little bit quicker combat in space, although I do like the verticality. Also like the debris field, there's a lot of cover to take in space. Another aspect of the combat system in this game is many times you actually are required to get out of your mobile suits, to take bases, call down support fire. This might seem more reminiscent of Titanfall, but however Titanfall was more of a first-person shooter, whereas you leveled up you could almost use your mech as a kill streak. This game seems to be the opposite. The focus here is on the mech combat itself. If your mech is getting close to being destroyed or you need to take a base, you can hop out. However, that is not the primary focus of the game. Just another aspect of a game mode mechanic in it. You also get to customize what your soldier looks like, although it is a bit limited. The game also features a central hub. This is probably one of my least favorite parts of this game. The graphics on the central hub look terrible. It looks like a PlayStation 2 game. It also feels kind of tacked on and a little unnecessary. A lot of the stuff could have been done just by menus. One of the characters you go to just to claim rewards for doing things in other modes. Another one you go to simply every time you level up. These characters also don't fit within the Universal Century timeline. As I said, the Universal Century timeline gives it a much more realistic aesthetic. However, a lot of the characters you'll be taking missions from are 10-year-old kids. It just doesn't seem right. The explanation of how it fits within the timeline is you are a mercenary group, taking jobs for each side. That way you can choose either mobile suit you like, which works fine. The leveling system in this game is a bit strange. Instead of leveling your mobile suit up the more you use it, its stats pretty well stay static. The only way you can actually level it up is either by putting on certain parts you've acquired from other modes in the game to level up some stats, getting a completely different mobile suit with a higher level that is practically identical to the one you already own, or by putting it in the garage for a certain period of time to level stats up slowly. This feels very out of place. Most of them are only minor effects, and the garage aspect seems like something you'd find in a mobile game. With many Gundam games in the past, there's been a large focus on customization. This is not the case for this game. The mobile suits you acquire will be stock. You will not be allowed to change these in pretty much any way, apart from maybe the paint after you've leveled up for a while. Also, the weapons you're allowed to use with the mobile suits are pretty well locked to what they used in the shows. So if you really like a beam saber, you will not be able to equip it onto a Zaku. Also, this game contains loot boxes, which normally I'd say is a hit or miss kind of mechanic. One thing I do like about this is this actually gives you premium currency for doing missions, so you can actually get loot boxes fairly quickly. Pretty much one a day as long as you complete your missions. Also, many of the loot boxes seem to contain items that you will not be able to find in some of the shops. Some of the ones I've opened already, looking through some of the menus, I have not been able to find in the menus. So how about the sound and graphics of this game? The graphics are okay. The central hub is a PlayStation 2 era mess. The combat areas in the game are pretty much early PlayStation 4. They're okay. Where the graphics really shine are on the mobile suits themselves. You can tell someone put in a lot of detail and a lot of work to really make them look right, which is great since it's the main focus of the game. The sound design is great. They take pretty much all the sound effects you'd expect to hear from the shows and match them up nicely to the mobile suits. In conclusion, I like the combat system in the game. I really like the ground combat. I like how it feels weighty. I could kind of take or leave the space combat. I do find it interesting how they do have people in the game with the mobile suits. I'm a big fan of the Universal Century timeline, so I do appreciate the attention to detail in a lot of the mobile suits, but I feel like they could have just lost the central hub entirely. Even though they have loot boxes in the game, it doesn't hurt the game, and it's not a pay-to-win mechanic, which is great. I like how you can earn in-game currency. The leveling system in this game is one of the strangest ones I've seen. It doesn't actually reward you for using your favorite mobile suit. Instead, it rewards you for putting it in a garage. The graphics are a little lackluster, but as again, they did put the time and effort into the mobile suits, and the sound quality is great. Overall, if you're a fan of the Gundam franchise, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Also, if you're a fan of some of the slower combat systems and more vehicular combat systems, I definitely recommend trying it out. And you can't beat free. To anyone else who's a big third-person shooter fan, I'd say maybe. This is definitely not going to be something I'd compare to Battlefront or Battlefield, as its quick-paced, rapid-fire combat, but is a good change of pace. Have anything else to add about the game? Comment below. That's it for now. Check back next week for another review, and please don't forget to subscribe.